Today is part 2 of seated use ideas using your vibration plate. I'm traveling today in New Brunswick, Ontario, or on New Brunswick, Ontario, New Brunswick, Canada is where I am. I'm in a small area called St. Quentin, and we're visiting family here, enjoying some time. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating another version of the therapeutic bump plates. I'm going to be working today on this is the smaller hex plate. You can see this has the therapeutic bumps on it. It's very light. So this one, a lot of times when you guys are asking me which machine should I get, it really boils down to more how you as a user plan to use it. So in this instance for today, for the series that I'm working on, the seated series. Today is day 2. We're going to do a little bit more on strength. I'm going to show you some upper body ideas. But ideally, in my opinion, this style of plate with the therapeutic bumps is better suited for primarily seated use. If you're looking at doing a big old workout, adding weights to your workout, you're a fitness guru, and you plan to do, mid-intensity to high-intensity fitness, the appeal of a small, compact plate I can understand, but they're not always best suited if you're doing lots of fitness applications. And if you're standing on the plates for long surfaces, sometimes the bumps will dig into your feet a little bit. So if you do have this style of plate and you do plan on using it for fitness, you could cover it with a mat, a folded up towel if you're finding that the feet are sensitive to it. But these more compact, lighter plates are more designed for things, in my opinion, like symptom management, relaxation. This would be the perfect second machine. This is great under the desk. It's light enough to take with you in transport. Something like this could easily check as airline luggage. You could even put it in as a carry-on. So this is the new hex plate. This is the hex plate light. This is oscillating movement. All of my sessions are always an oscillating movement. It is the most functional. And for those of you that are coming from a place of poor mobility, stability, or maybe in a recovery situation, a lot of times people don't realize it's not a setting, it's not any one number, but the movement style of a plate is going to offer different benefits. And the reason I recommend oscillating moves like a teeter-totter very much mimics how we walk. It mimics our natural movement across the floor of walking. So it's really, really good, not only for functional training, but it's ideal if you're looking to improve balance and stability. For a lot of you that are looking at improving strength, bone density, some of the things short-term we're thinking about more so is the falls prevention piece. So oscillating, by nature of the technology, you boost your balance and stability even within the course of one session. So I've got a couple of things I want to show you today that I'm working with. What did I do with my, I've left something somewhere. What did I do here? 1 second. Deandra? One accessory today. This is a kid's playground ball. I bought it literally 20 minutes ago at the local Rossi store. If you have children, if you do not have children, there's lots of items that you often can use around the house. You don't necessarily need to go buy a whole bunch of fitness accessories. With the hex plate, I literally just took this one out of the box. There are also hand straps. So for those of you that are only able to start seated, or you're doing a combination of seated and standing exercises, you can use the straps with this model if you want to do some upper body exercises while you're seated. I'm going to show you some other things without the straps today. So starting out, I've got the machine powered. I'm sitting in a bar height stool today, as I covered in last week's session. There is no ideal size. It really boils down to you personally, your level of comfort, how tall you are. But ideally, once you're seated in the chair, with your feet up on the plate. It's going to raise your feet up off the ground anywhere from 6 to 8 inches, depending on the height of your platform. So you want to compensate for that difference on the stool that you're sitting on. So I'm just going to bring this up a little bit further. Perfect. So, thinking you can see me okay there. So on this model, although it has some foot position markers, if you're finding at any time throughout the course of the session or as you're using it, that it's just a little bit too strong, you can widen your feet for more intensity, or you can bring them closer for less intensity. Where the markers of the feet are on, typically these ones, they're about hip width apart, which is the most natural position that you can use. Still a little bit there. And one of the things I said that I wanted to talk about today, last week we covered, and I will drop last week's session in the feed today so you can take a look. Last week was let's say more beginner seated. We did some leg pumps. I showed you guys how to relieve some sciatic and some plantar fasciitis issues. Sometimes when we're aspiring to improve, there's some short-term deficiencies that we need to address but before we can progress to other things, especially standing exercises. So today I would like you setting your machines, as always, at a mid-speed range. This new hex plate model has 120 speeds. So I'm going to suggest you want to go upwards of 50 to 60 to start. I'm going to keep mine slower so you can see the movement on camera. And just sitting here for 30 seconds to a minute is a great way to just get some circulation, some lymphatic movement going. If you spend too much time sitting, or you tend to have swelling or other symptoms that present later on in the day, this is a great model for under the desk. If for those of you that are looking, it's a little bit smaller than the regular hex plate that I used last week. I think this one comes in around the 13-pound range. So of all of Life Pro's models, this is the smallest and the most compact, but it does have the bumps. And I recommend this model, especially because it is smaller. Sometimes when you're standing on a smaller device, if that's where you're planning to go, you're only standing on 13 pounds. So they can be tippy. And that's why I sometimes say if you're looking at longer term fitness gains, you might want to look at a slightly bigger model. So today we're going to move away from just the legs, but while the feet are on the plate, I want to show you some easy upper body add-ons. If you're looking at just increasing lymphatic movement, circulation, two ways that you can start by adding upper body. First, we're going to take our hands, just place them on our knees, and we are locking our elbows. Now, two things are happening here without realizing it. Because we are essentially putting our hands on our knees and we're leaning into it a bit, we're exposing the lower part of the legs to a little bit more weight than if our hands were not on the knees. So this, if you're trying to build up strength in the calves, a good little add-on once our hands become a part of the equation and are touching the knees, we get a slight little bit of movement. You can see in my arms here. Great way to get some lazy lymph going, increase some circulation. Perhaps you're dealing with neck tension, shoulder tension, carpal tunnel, neuropathy. There's a number of different reasons we want to get that lymph and that circulation going. If you are dealing with pain, if you're dealing with lack of sensitivity, swelling, all the more reason, using something like this more frequently throughout the course of your day versus, the typical 10 to 15 minute thing that people think. 2 to 3 minutes of just doing this as you need throughout the course of the day is often a much better approach than one big, long session, especially if you're dealing with lymphatic flow or circulation issues. So the first way we're going to start working this with some strength is we're going to do some calf raises, but we're going to keep the hands on the shoulders to just boost the strength a little bit. So we're going to come up on the toes. We're going to hold for 2 to 3 seconds. If you have weakness in the calves, if you've got instability in the ankles, poor flexibility, in last week's session, if you did not see, I was working with a pool noodle. A pool noodle is kind of what I call a vibration machine roller. They're the best tool to incorporate for those types of applications. But it's something that you can wedge under the heels if you just want a little bit more stability when you're first starting this exercise. So we're going to come up and down. Like I say, hold anywhere from 2 to 3, maybe even 5 seconds if you're feeling comfortable. And I would love to see you to do about 5 to 10 reps of this. So we're probably running anywhere from about 45 seconds to a minute. And again, the arms are still locked on this one. It's just adding a little bit more weight into the calves themselves for this exercise, okay? Next variation, if range of motion allows, it's a little bit more intense on the upper body, is instead of the hands, we're going to move forward and we're going to add the elbows. So we're going to lean over. I like to just hold my hands like this. So now we're going to even a little bit more body weight into those calves, into the feet. I like this. I get a little bit more direct action into the neck and the shoulders. For those of you that are dealing with lymphatic issues in the upper torso, if you're doing, any dry brushing, any self lymphatic massage, you can do some of those preparatory exercises. And by adding the elbows to the knees, you're getting a little bit more physical movement with the machine. It's a little more direct into the neck and the shoulders. And I like to just let my head drop. You can do some shoulder rolls, arch up, and just get some movement going in the neck and the shoulders. And all the machine is providing is a level of stimulus. And the whole while you're doing this, we're just adding much more body weight into the lower extremities and just building strength in the feet, the ankles, the calves, and in the knees to a degree. And I would do this one, sometimes if I'm having a bad day and I'm on the computer too much, I might do this one more often. This is a great way to relieve neck and shoulder tension without having to get physical with your hands or something, just by simply adding the elbows to the knees. This is a great way to do it. And if you were comfortable with the first exercise, the calf raise, this is just going to add a little bit more weight. So the variation would be coming up on the toes, keeping those elbows in place, holding for 2 to 3 seconds. You'll feel that there's more weight that your calves are pushing up against. And with this one, again, if you're doing it in this fashion, 5 to 10 reps is, so anywhere from about 45 seconds to a minute. Make sure that you're breathing. Okay. Perfect. And again, if you're dealing with severe chronic symptoms of any kind, feel free to use your plate more frequently, but reduce time. The machine's not going to do the work for you. You really don't need to just sit there for 10 minutes or go longer and longer and expect more results. When you're using it for symptom management or you're using it in complement to a workout as, maybe as a warm-up or recovery, those sessions can be under 5 minutes. And if it is for symptom management, use it when your body tells you you need a fix. Use it more often. So I have a highly technical little accessory today that I said I was going to work with. For those of you that are wanting to work on more upper leg, hips strength, but we're maybe not quite in a position to be standing for long durations yet, you can use a little apparatus like this. I also like to use the swirl, the smallest size yoga swirl ring. I did not bring those with me in my travels today, but you could place the smaller yoga swirl ring or a ball just above the knees between the thighs. And what this is forcing our inner and outer thighs to do is to hold the ball in place as part of the equation. So by adding the ball in between the legs while we're doing many of the same exercises, we're just engaging more muscle groups. So if we were going to do the calf raise, that ball is in place. We're going to lift up, hold for 2 to 3 seconds, come back down. You want a little bit more mass going into those lower legs? Try first adding the hands. Elbows are locked. We're doing this with the ball. These are all just simple progressions you can experiment with. Where you are starting and where you want to progress is different for everyone. The third variation, putting those elbows on the knee, we're keeping the ball in place. Lift up, hold 2 to 3 seconds, extend it as long as 5. Come back down. Okay, this one, same thing, 5, 10 reps if you'd like. We're doing 2 to maybe 5 seconds. You shouldn't be any longer than about 45 to seconds to a minute with this exercise. So if it wasn't for my rambling and we were doing actual time, we'd only be about 3 minutes in at this point. everything I'm doing seated is designed. Typically, when you're seated, I do encourage you to use it more frequently throughout the day, especially to manage those symptoms. Now, but this ball is a little bit smaller than some of the ones I've used in my other sessions. I'm using a smaller plate. So total wide position on this compared to perhaps a Rumblex, you're not going to be able to stand as far, wide or close. The changing of the foot position and oscillating is how we control the intensity. It controls the amount of movement. So if you are dealing with, new joints, arthritic knees, and anything where you can't sustain high impact or long duration activity, it's going wider doesn't mean more benefit. It means more movement, more impact. So if you are dealing with sensitivities, keep your feet situated where the little footprints are outlined on this. If it's still too intense for where you're at, or you're having a day where perhaps your pain or sensitivities is heightened, you can bring your feet closer together, okay? So I just want to show you this ball one again. We're going to put that between the legs. And we're going to do some calf raises. Option 1, locking the arms, heels of the hands on the knees. Option 2. Okay. Third option is leaning right over, putting those elbows on the knees, ball still in place. And again, the small size yoga swirl ring is actually my fave for this, but this works in a pinch. Okay. And the last exercise I want to work with you isn't actually so much strength, but I really want you guys to start working your range of motion and your flexibility. And I know if you're unable to stand on the machine for long periods, something like a toe touch would probably not traditionally be something that you'd be doing on a regular basis. But we do want to improve from the waist up. And sometimes when you're seated, there's limited options as to what you can try and experiment with. So here's just another one I wanted to give you as a variation. I'm going to take my arms, and depending on how far you can reach, I want you just reaching forward as far as your range of motion allows. And if this is maybe as far as you can do, just relax and let your body lean forward. If you've got the range of motion to keep coming, this is my fave. Okay, I'm very small in this area, so I don't have as much getting in the way as some of you may. A trick you can do with this one is just widen the knees apart a little bit. Bring yourself down and just put the heels of your hands on the edge of the plate. If you can't quite reach the plate, you can put them on the feet, hang on to the ankles. This is just a variation. And again, let the head fall, relax, twist the neck. All we're doing by reaching over and working on flexibility here is we're also, by putting the heels of our hands in contact with the machine, we're getting direct stimulation up through the arm and the neck now. You want to relax. You're not fighting and resisting this. Okay? And then when you're coming up, do it kind of slow. Roll yourself up. You get a lot of circulation, a lot of blood flow going. I don't want anyone getting lightheaded. Okay? Those are 3 very simple variations when you're working towards standing on your plate or standing for long durations on the floor again. Sometimes if you've been in a situation of recovery or you've just been seated for periods, you very quickly lose that muscle strength, that definition. Sometimes it's further compromised by sensitivity and swelling and things like that. So if you are just getting started, if you are coming from a place of recovery or injury where you're not able to stand for long periods, there's so many variations you can do seated. But I always talk about the body kind of like a house. We're renovating the house here. You always got to start with the foundation. So if the goal is to move forward towards standing exercises, next week we're going to talk about a progression to standing. We're going to work on an exercise called the sit to stand, for those of you that are up for it. That would be the very next progression if you are able to stand on the plate. Even seated, you're going to improve some balance, some strength. We're certainly going to improve the circulation, lymphatic movement, and sensitivities as well. So again, I want to stress for these models with the bumps, these are awesome as a second machine, or if you're planning on spending most of your time seated, look at me, one hand. This is very manageable. So a lot of times maybe you start with a plate like this and you progress, you surprise yourself and you progress to other things and you're in a better situation. But ideally with these ones, if you do have a machine with bumps and you're finding standing on it, it's digging into the feet, a quick fix is just cutting a piece of yoga mat, a good thick yoga mat, the shape of your plate surface, or doubling up a towel. You can certainly use shoes as another option, or some sandals, something like that. These are great if you are dealing with neuropathy and sensitivity issues and you're trying to manage those symptoms. For my care providers and my therapists out there, if you are dealing with clients that lack mobility, perhaps they're just coming from a place of fear, or they fatigue easily, there's so much advantage to just spending a couple of minutes on the plate with the feet seated in prep for your other work or your other modalities. It's a great way to increase energy, mental clarity. So many different things can come from that simple increase in circulation and lymphatic movement. So the smallest of the lineup that LifePro has to offer currently, I kind of like to call it the mighty hexaplate. Even though this thing is smaller and maybe not as intense looking as some of the Remblex models, it's a great, there's never one perfect plate for every situation. It really, really boils down to what you personally are using the plate for. And I want you to be mindful and realistic. If you're not coming from a place of exercise, you've never exercised for purpose in your life, and you really, you're not looking at this because you don't want to work out. You do have to put some effort forth, but the best way to get benefits on these machines is to simply be consistent in using them regularly. And I can't stress enough for those of you that are coming from a place of chronic symptoms, to please use it more regularly. Let your body decide when it needs attention, whether it's an increase in swelling, pain, perhaps you're lacking energy and mental clarity. 2 to 3 minutes is a great way to regain and boost those types of things within your body. If you're dealing with fatigue and you're terribly deconditioned, sometimes going too long actually depletes the energy that you have, and that's kind of being counterintuitive. If you have overdone it, you opened up your book, and the book is a great guideline for general use, but many of you are dealing with chronic issues or recovering. I absolutely recommend more frequent, shorter sessions and build up from there. I do not recommend slow speeds. Slow speeds can be very choppy and jarring, especially if you're dealing with hypermobility or recent injury. I by far recommend experimenting. There's no exact way to use these machines. This is just my approach because I do deal with so many chronic issues. But I would recommend the feet hip width apart, closer if need, and start at more of a mid-speed range, whatever that is in your machine settings, in oscillating. And just try it as a comparative to what you may or may not have been doing. I want to see if anybody want to talk to me today. Who's here with me? Hello, Danny Lynn. Dana Lynn, I think I'm saying that right. Dana Lynn says, this is wonderful for me as my weight, vertigo, and knees don't allow me to stand. Interesting, Dana Lynn. I find I've been doing this almost 20 years. So I have the good fortune of having some really long-term history with some of my clients. And even though the bad knees and the weight are really a non-issue, everybody in my personal groups that I support have bad knees and weight concerns for the most part. It's understanding how to use a machine for your sensitivities, how to modify it. And the foot distance is a really big, it's almost more important than speed, but everybody talks about speed. And movement type, oscillating is much more natural. I think you'll find with the vertical, a good way to experiment is some of those with the hands or the elbows, just as an experimentation. But make sure if you have any neck or head sensitivities, just relax. Don't resist and fight the machine. It just amplifies and causes tension that you're trying to get rid of. Danilyn also says, what is suggested, barefoot or shoes? I personally always use barefoot. It was how I was taught with the medical devices way, way, way back. But I do recognize it's never a black and white answer. So if you just got a brand new pair of orthotics that you dropped $1,000 on, you should start as you are. If it's recommended or you prefer to wear compressions, if you wear a knee brace, whatever you would do when you're doing your normal activity, start with the machine that way. If you are dealing with neuropathy, swelling in the feet and the ankles, I prefer, from a therapeutic standpoint, bare feet. But if you're highly sensitive, sometimes the models with the bump, that might be another reason to add a small towel or a yoga mat. A lot of my diabetics that are, maybe you have sores on your feet, but you'd like to use your machine. So sometimes shoes, there's a reason, but long term, in my opinion, I think you're going to enjoy it. The feet are going to get a lot more direct attention. We weren't born with shoes. But if you're heading out the door and you just want to, a quick burst of energy, or you want to fix your back for a minute or two, sometimes it's go how you are, if that makes sense. Okay. Hello, Linda Marvin. How can I direct message you? I do offer one-on-one coaching separately. If it's related to today's session, I would be happy for you to post a question here so everyone can benefit from the answer. If you're looking for my learning groups, I will post a link later on how you can access all of my groups. I specialize in a couple of support groups, one with lipedema, lymphedema, and hypermobility. I deal with a lot of what I would refer to as fat disorders, loose connective tissue disorders. I also have the opposite end of the spectrum. I have a support group for special needs families. Specifically, cerebral palsy is how that started out with, but it's kind of morphed and grown into every kind of special needs. So I do, I'm a vibration plate specialist. I just bring a little bit more tenure and experience in the frontline situation. So I've been physically dealing with people with a variety of plates. I use all different types of movements. My experience with you, the user, is not only is oscillating more functional and there's more long-term benefits, but it's also more preferred by more people. 9 out of 10 people prefer this type of movement. It's just more natural in its feeling. Linda, you should be able to, through here, direct message me. I will go and drop my information link. Give me about an hour after this session to wrap things up, and I'll put a drop to my information. You can find my email through there as well, but I will also drop a link to last week's session. So if you didn't get a chance to see part 1, which was more basic than today, some basic information, I'll drop that in the link so you can check that out on Life Pros page. I'm live every Monday, typically Mondays, unless it's a holiday, sometimes Tuesday. But I'm here live every Monday. If you have issues that you would like to discuss, or a topic that you would like me to do a session on specifically, please, please, please let me know. I love the feedback. If you have a question that you're seeing this maybe after the live and you didn't get an opportunity to ask me, tag me at Debbie with a Y. Sometimes if the convo gets going, things can get lost in the discussion and I don't always get the notifications. Facebook's really scaling back in what we can tag and how many invites and things like that. So we do our very best to get this out to you and share, but Facebook very heavily limits. I think we can invite 50 people out of the thousands and thousands that are here. So stay tuned. I'm typically live Mondays, and I know that Jen and the team is excellent about posting these prior. So go into the events on the VIP and, more importantly, the main Life Pro page to see what's coming up. And if you have missed something, and there's always a recording after the fact, as I said, Linda, feel free to just message me directly or contact me through some of the links that I'll provide with you later today. Dottie says, thank you, Debbie, for all your wonderful, easy to understand info. I so appreciate these classes. Sometimes I make it ridiculously simple, but I am dealing with so many that are just coming from not necessarily a place of deficiencies or medical concerns, but I didn't exercise for purpose when I got into this. I was an athlete. I played all kinds of sports, but until I blew my knee out, I didn't know that I had to do certain things or should be. And now that I'm in my 5th decade of life, there's different reasons that I use the machine, not just for staying fit and healthy, but I got aches, I got pains, I've got sciatic. I never did get the knee done. And sometimes it's how our body compensates for those issues that we're dealing with. It can sometimes cause other issues just in changing how we walk or how we sleep can create these issues. So don't be afraid to use your plate when your body tells you you need attention. Maybe you're dealing with restless leg or sleep apnea. Give it a try before bed, but keep those sessions short, 2 to 3 minutes. See how you feel. You can always add more time or intensity over time. But I recommend absolutely if you're restricted to using, you're coming from a chronic place, keep your sessions more frequent and shorter. I think you're going to find it's the most awesome symptom management tool. If you are doing other activities or other therapies, many of these are great as a pre or a post activity situation. It's just the ultimate complement. It'll give you a lot more benefit where perhaps physically you're not able to push yourself at the same level with some of those activities that you have traditionally in the past. Is there an email? My email information will be in the link, Linda. And if nobody else has any questions, I want to thank you for joining me today. We've run about 30 minutes. I don't want to keep you from your beautiful summer wherever you are enjoying it. It is 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m. My time. I will see you next week. I will be off for a session, but the following, let me see what the date will be. Today is the 22nd. I will see you on the 5th of August for the third session in this series at 5 p.m. I look forward to seeing you guys all then. As I said, any questions in between, please feel free to tag me at Debbie with a Y, and I'll get all of my information and last week's session posted here within the next hour. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Have a great rest of your week, and don't work too hard. Thanks for joining me.